Man, I love a good book. I'm someone who enjoys reading on his free time. When I'm not watching movies or dealing with bullshit or spinning a record, playing a game, or going to Blockbuster, I have a fine time to read a book once in a while. I pull out my books that I have, read a little classic, and have myself an enjoyment. Peace, quiet, relaxing. I mean, take the Polar Express, for example. It's one of the best Christmas stories out there and one of the best books out there. Fine story, beautiful illustration. It's about the story of going to the North Pole to see Santa Claus and the belief of Christmas. I believe. Do you believe? Because I sure the fuck do. But in the end, I don't necessarily believe like in this fucking movie. I mean, in books, you got all sorts of genres going on. You got your fucking action, adventure, horror, fantasy, pornography, western, sci-fi, you name it. All sorts of genres out there in the world of books that everyone likes to read. Whether it's a regular book where it's just using your imagination or something like this where you got some pictures to look at with some nice looking art. Or a fucking graphic novel where it's showing you the story being unfolded. Or you can be like me once in a while who likes to pull out a Playboy and look at the pages sometimes for the articles. I don't know what you're thinking. But Richard Tyler, this fucking kid, he was supposed to be known as the Pagemaster after the wizard put him on a fucking journey. Allow me to explain this fucking fiasco. So, this fucking kid, he was played by Macaulay Culkin. Home Alone. We all know him. That was one of the most infamous movies that he's ever played in. Home Alone 1 and 2. But the kid is a dork. He's a nerd. He's extremely nervous. And I'm sure he's got some sort of schizophrenic mental disorder that I'm sure that none of us are even aware of or wasn't even addressed in this fucking movie. Besides the fact that he was afraid of getting a fucking boo-boo on his arm where he'll have to get a Band-Aid or grab a fucking tourniquet or something to wrap that shit up, make sure that it won't bleed out, where even though it's just a little small sliver that requires peroxide, neosporin, and or a bandage. But in other words, to describe this kid, he's a fucking pussy. So he's asked to go to the hardware store to buy his dad some fucking nails and other equipment with the $5 I was giving to him. And then all of a sudden a thunderstorm transpires and he ends up going into the library to dry up. But he asks the librarian, can I please make a phone call? I'm not interested in checking out no fucking books. So while he's trying to find the phone, he slips on his ass and he embarks on a journey to get home. But he has to uncover 3 genres of stories and not only become friends with them, but also have a, no pun intended, an adventure within these 3 stories. He has to embark on meeting fantasy, adventure, and horror. Very specific genres of books, but they are very well common stories that a lot of people enjoy to read. Depends what you like and who you are. So they go on a bunch of random adventures, like I said, no pun intended, surrounding the story theme for the kid's soul to return back to his lifeless corpse, where clearly all he was doing was just fucking daydreaming and he just hit his head by mistake. So that's literally the whole entire scenario of what this movie is all about. And here are some things I can say. The opening credits before the movie actually started, I thought that presentation looked nice. The variety of what adventure, fantasy, and horror is. And I thought the score sounded really fucking good. Like there was some sort of excitement for that. Like I really thought the score in the opening credits before the movie started looked really, really neat. The movie did have a premise. The film did have a premise, and there was an idea right there that could have been successful if the fucking cards were dealt right. But instead, you were given the fucking dead man's hand instead. I'll give credit. Macaulay Culkin, he was a well-known, profound child star back then in the 90s. But in this movie, though, the kid was a fucking twerp. He was literally a fucking pussy. That's how his character came off, even throughout the entire film, before it went into animation. He was a pussy in live action, and even during the animation, he was a pussy throughout a good portion of the film. But towards the final act, he had to grow his fucking balls to realize not to be afraid anymore. Now, as for the books itself, horror, fantasy, and adventure, the variety was there. But the problem was that when it was embarking from starting with horror, going into fantasy, and ending with adventure, horror, then adventure, then fantasy, it was all over the place with that. But the ideas were there. It was all right there. It can be displayed. I mean, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, fucking Treasure Island, and goddamn Sword in the Stone, or whatever you want to call it. I just felt like the movie was a big clusterfuck. It was a big clusterfuck. I mean, with all the concepts going on within the genres, it didn't know what it wanted to do. Sure, you wanted to take after some of the well-known stories and whatnot of some of the most important literatures out there that not only were childhood classics, but also classics to remember as an adult. I just felt like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was just tossed in there. Same with Treasure Island, and same with the fucking dragon fighting scene. It was all just randomly tossed in there. It was just all random. Like, what is the fucking drive? Where is the common logical fact of fucking Tyler trying to get home to Lucas, for Christ's sakes? I mean, good God Almighty. I mean, I remember seeing this film as a kid. I rented it from Blockbuster a few times. I thought it wasn't bad when I was a kid, but then again, I was still learning about how film worked. And as I got older, watching this film on several rewatches, I was just thinking to myself, what in the fuck is this? You got something that has potential, but ended up executing flat. It was just all over the place. Cringy at sometimes, too. And the dialogue was ridiculous. Complete ridiculous. In this film, it was literally made with a promising concept, and it just felt flat of being complete randomness and just there for the sake of being there. Sure, there's gonna be some people saying, "Oh, probably gonna say this is a novelty film, something of their childhood and whatnot." That's good. That's good on them. This film was not a part of my childhood. In fact, this is one of those forgettable movies that I remembered. The only reason why I wanted to talk about this film because it just came out of thin air, and it was talked about amongst others. So there you go. As for what I gave the Pagemaster, I gave it a 1 out of 5 because of interesting concept that had potential. The opening sequence before the movie actually even started, the score was not bad. The animation looked okay. I mean, not like I've seen something like that before, but the animation was okay for what it was. But otherwise, the story just lost so much interest with me when I was rewatching this. I lost so much goddamn interest rewatching this film. Like, I just fucking zoned out. I zoned out. But I kept focused. I took my notes, drank my water, Sprite, whatever it is I had with me, and I got through it, and I watched it, and I figured, you know what? That was the fucking point. It was self-discovery. Oh, well. Well, that's going to do it for my little talk on the fucking Pagemaster. Fucking ridiculous-ass nonsense this movie was. And, folks, if you've seen the Pagemaster, let me know down below your thoughts of a film that had promise, but it didn't end up being fucking promising. So with that being said, folks, ciao for now.